Here's our video on properties of operations, and we're not talking about medical operations, but math. So here's one property, the commutative property, and it's only with addition and multiplication. Remember, we can't do it with division, we can't do it with subtraction. And here's a vocabulary word, addends. So addends are just numbers added together, right? So 3 and 5, these are addends, and the answer is the sum. So that's what addends are. So that's the vocabulary word. So let's look at the commutative property. Here's one with addition and multiplication. So 29 plus 3 is the same as saying 3 plus 29. Makes sense, right? So in the commutative property, you see we just switch the numbers around. That's all we do. So if you think of commuting, when someone commutes, they take the train from point A to point B. They're commuting. They're going back and forth. So that's how you can remember the commutative property. And it's same with multiplication. 3 times 5 is also 5 times 3. So that's all it is. That's the commutative property. It's pretty easy. So let's look at one. So if I said 4 plus what number, how would we answer this question? 4 plus what number equals 5 plus 4? Commutative property, you just put a 5, right? And how do we answer this question? 6 times 4 in the commutative property is also, great, 4 times 6. Right? Same thing. Commutative property, going back and forth. Okay, the next property is the associative property. And again, only addition and multiplication. So in the associative property, we have 3 numbers we're going to deal with right over. All right, so with 5 plus 6, you see we have something in parentheses here, plus 7. We're going to write the same numbers again, but put the parentheses, the grouping symbol, somewhere else, like there. So in the associative property, for now, we have 3 numbers with grouping symbols, the parentheses. And we're just going to move the parentheses. That's all we're going to do. So if you saw this, let's say I had 8 plus 3 plus 2. What would you do that? How would you fix that? Or put it in another way. How can you do it with the associative property? So again, write the same numbers, but change the grouping. Instead of 3 plus 2 together, well, 8 plus 3 together. That's the associative property. So one way to remember is whoever was alone at first shouldn't be alone in the associative property. So again, it's with multiplication and division. Multiplication and addition, not division. So how would you do that one in the associative property? Okay, so again, you're just writing the same numbers. Now it's multiplication. 3 and 6 were together, so they shouldn't be together again. Now we'll have 4 and 3 together. That's it. That's the associative property. By the way, if let's do something. Let's say I had 5 times 2 times 6. And you had this in parentheses. You don't have to put them in order because in multiplication, it doesn't matter how you multiply. You can have 6 times 2 times 5 if you wish. It's the same thing, right? Or, what's another way you can make that? So let's do one here. So again, we can have 5 times 2 times 6. We can do 6 times 2 times 5. We can do 2 times 5 times 6. You can just, again, with multiplication and addition, it doesn't matter where you put the order. And you can have a parentheses there, you can have a parentheses there, you can have a parentheses there, and so forth with these associative property. Now be careful. Here's something that sometimes students make mistakes with when they see 2 operations. 4 plus 3 times 8. Right? It's not, put these things like this, it's not this. When you have 2 different operations, don't do the associative property. Okay? Be careful. It is not that. So it does not equal that. Be careful. But it can be, so let's see, what can it be? So if I had, let's put it again, 4 plus 3 times 8, we had 4 plus 3 in parentheses, Well, you remember the commutative property, it also can be this, just switched around. Alright, the next property, the last property we'll talk about in this video is the identity property. And in addition, it uses 0. In multiplication, it uses the number 1. So all it is think of identity. It just gets the same number. So how can you get the same number? Well, if I had 5 plus 0, I get the same number. So that's the identity property. In multiplication, 5 times 1 gives me the same number. So that's all it is, the identity property. So let's do one more thing. Let's draw a model of this. How can we draw a model of this? So let's draw a model using the associative property. Now, I don't mean a model airplane or a model on the runway. We went over models in 5th grade. So again, this would be, we can put it like this, and just put the grouping symbol in a different place. Bring that over. And the models use pictures or blocks. So how can we do that? Okay, well, let's draw squares. So let's say we had 3 squares. 1, 2, 3 squares. And we want to add it, in parentheses, to 2 squares plus 1 square. So we have 3 squares, 2 plus 1 square. So we have a total of 6 squares. So is that not the same now as saying we have 3 squares plus 2 squares, in parentheses, plus 1 square? Same thing. Alright, that's drawing a model. So those are the properties. Make sure that you study those properties. The commutative property, go back and forth. The associative property, remember you're associating with different people. 3 was alone, now 3 is not alone, remember that. And the identity property, get the same number. How do you get the same number with addition? Add a 0. How do you get the same number with multiplication? Add a 1. Great job.